Our first dupe is from the Hydrangea website. It's this beautiful orchid urn. It looks like a decorative box to me. The black box with the silver top is so pretty. I love those branches and the gold flowers. The only thing I would change about it is the price. This beautiful orchid urn is $625. I do not want to spend that, so let's create one for ourselves. The first thing that we need is a box. So I headed over to Hobby Lobby. They have a great selection of wooden boxes, and luckily for me, they were 40% off. I found this wooden box that is the exact same size as our inspiration piece. I needed to remove the original hardware that came with the wooden box, so I got my screwdriver and I unscrewed both of the screws, one on either side, and then removed the hardware. Now I have a blank slate to work with. We need to spray paint the bottom of our box black. So I took it outside and I sprayed it in some black semi-gloss spray paint. I did the underside and the 4 sides first. Once the bottom and the sides were coated in the spray paint, I let it dry for 1 hour. Then I flipped it over, and to keep the box elevated, I like to use the paint can lid. That way it doesn't get stuck to the paper. So once it was in place, I continued painting the 4 sides one more time to make sure everything was sufficiently coated in the paint, and I also painted the inside. Once everything had been painted, I let it dry for 1 more hour. The top of our inspiration piece was silver, so we're going to paint our lid silver. Again, I took it outside. I painted the bottom of the lid first. Once that was done, I let it dry for about a half an hour. I flipped it over and I painted the top, and then let it dry for 1 hour. What I really loved about our inspiration piece was the top with the pretty branches and the gold orchid flower. It was really hard trying to figure out how I was going to recreate it. But we are going to do it with some dried Mitsumata branches. I found a bunch of these at Hobby Lobby, and these were also on sale, which was fantastic for my budget. I do not need a long branch, so what I'm going to do is cut off a few pieces from the top of one of the branches. The color right now is a creamy white, and we need to change that to a black and silver combination. So what I'm going to do is spray the branches black first. I did a light coat, and then I got my silver paint and I dusted that paint over the top. Just did a couple of quick splurts just to make sure that the silver was on there, but that it didn't cover up the black paint that was on there first. Once I was satisfied with the way that everything looked, I let it dry for just about 10 minutes, and then I flipped it over and I did the exact same thing. I painted the black paint on these branches first and then dusted a light coat of the silver paint over the top. Now, I think that this painting technique worked beautifully. These branches are just the right color. Now, we need some flowers. And so I didn't really know what to use because I needed them to be solid. So once again, shopping at Hobby Lobby, I went down the knob aisle and I found these beautiful floral knobs. They're the right size, the right shape, and the right price. These were on sale as well. Now, the only thing that needs to be changed is the color of these knobs. So what I did was I got a paper cup and I poked the screw through the paper cup, which held my flowers in place, and then I spray painted them in some gold Rust-Oleum spray paint. I made sure that the sides of the top of these floral knobs were coated in the spray paint. Once everything was sufficiently covered, I let it dry for 1 hour. Now that we have all of our pieces, it's time to assemble. So what I'm going to do first is drill some holes in the top. I'm using my fabulous Athena drill. I drilled one hole that was a little closer to the front and off to the side, and then I drilled a second hole further to the back and off to the opposite side. Before we attach our knobs to the lid, we're going to add our branches on there first. I just got some hot glue and I added hot glue to the branches and then placed them on the lid. I pressed those branches firmly so that they would adhere very well. I had 3 separate mini branches that I hot glued on top of the lid. Now it's time to add our floral knobs. So I just took the screw and I poked it through the hole, flipped it over and added the washer and the nut, which held this first knob in place. Then I moved on to my second knob, poked it through the hole and added the washer and the nut to the back. So now this knob is attached to the lid as well. Now that everything's on, we can put that lid back onto our box. And here is what it looks like. You guys, I love the way that this looks. We were able to recreate an almost identical piece for so much less. This is a beautiful decorative accessory. I love the different metallics on here. The silver, gold, and black of the box looks classy, and the branches make this box look unique. We were able to recreate our inspiration orchid urn for so much less. After calculating all the costs that went into creating this beautiful box, it only cost me $32.97. So we saved hundreds of dollars duping this. I'm loving the way this decorative box turned out, and it's always great to do it on a budget. Here is a scene for you. You're having a party, you want it to be beautiful, you're going to set your table, and you need a fantastic tablecloth. Well, I found a beautiful tablecloth that fits right into this storyline. It's this gorgeous hydrangea tablecloth. This crisp tablecloth had pops of blue hydrangeas blooming all over. The only problem with this setting is the cost of this tablecloth. It comes in at the price of $280, which is too much for me to pay, so we are going to recreate this ourselves. So the first thing that we need is a tablecloth. Well, I know that they have really affordable tablecloths at Ross, so I headed over there and I found the perfect tablecloth. It's a fantastic color. It's a perfect blank slate to work with. We can add all kinds of embellishments to this tablecloth. And it was only $9.99, which is a great price. Now I will say right now that my tablecloth is not as large as our inspiration tablecloth, but that's going to be the only difference. So now we've got a tablecloth. We need to find some hydrangeas. I headed over to Hobby Lobby and I was rummaging through the fabric section. I spotted a bolt of fabric that had beautiful blue hydrangeas on it. These hydrangeas look so similar to our inspiration hydrangeas. And it was my lucky day because all the fabric was 40% off, so I got a yard of this gorgeous hydrangea fabric. The variations of blue and the shades of green and the leaves is exactly what I was looking for. If you're wondering how we're going to add the hydrangeas to our tablecloth, I was wondering the same thing. So I picked up another package of this. There's a yard per package and the price is only $3.49, which is awesome. We have all the materials we need to create our tablecloth, so let's get going. The first thing we're gonna do is take our 1 yard of fabric, flip it over so that the unfinished side is facing up, and then we're gonna get our iron-on adhesive. Now there are two sides to this adhesive. There's the side that has the paper on it, and then there's a sticky side. You're gonna put the sticky side on top of the fabric right now facing down. Then I grabbed my iron. My iron is set at a medium-high heat. Mine's actually on the cotton setting right now. I placed it over the top of the iron-on adhesive. You want to move your iron around the surface slowly, leaving it in place for about 2 seconds before you move on to a different area. Once the entire surface of the iron-on adhesive had been heated up properly, the fabric and the adhesive fuses together. Now the fabric actually stiffens up, so we've got the iron-on adhesive on the back, and the good thing about having this iron-on adhesive is that now it's not going to fray because we're going to cut out our hydrangeas. Now this is kind of a time-consuming process, you guys. This is the time where you can cut out any design that you want. If you want hearts or stars or pumpkins, this is the time to do it. So I got some fabric scissors and I began to cut out all of these hydrangeas individually. Cutting out these hydrangeas and the leaves will give us the look that we're going for. Now that everything's cut out, I can position my hydrangeas over the surface of my tablecloth. Now I spread them out evenly, and now we can adhere our fabric hydrangeas to the tablecloth. I'm going to remove the protective covering from the adhesive on the fabric and then place my fabric hydrangeas where I want them permanently on the tablecloth. I would definitely recommend putting something underneath your fabric at this point. You don't want to burn your countertop or your table, so do it on top of an ironing board, or you could even put a towel underneath. I took my iron and I put it over the top of my fabric. This time you're going to want to leave it in one area for 8 seconds. This heats up the adhesive and fuses it to the tablecloth or whatever surface you want it to be fused to. I slowly moved around the top of the fabric. At this stage, I'm going to repeat this process with all of my fabric hydrangeas. I'm going to remove that protective paper coating, place the hydrangeas in the area I want, and then press the iron firmly over the fabric. Leave it in one area for 8 seconds and then slowly move it around so the entire surface of the fabric has been heated up properly. I had a whole bunch of hydrangeas to adhere to this tablecloth, but it went by fairly quickly, and now you can see how fantastically this fabric fuses to the tablecloth. And now we are finished with our tablecloth. I'm gonna try and stand back as far as I can so you guys can see this. Look at how pretty this tablecloth looks with all these blue hydrangeas on it. I absolutely love it. And look at how beautifully this fused to my tablecloth. It looks like it's one piece. It looks like it was supposed to always be there. It definitely looks like it was professionally done, which I absolutely love. You always want your pieces to look like they put time and effort and they look like you purchased them from the store, which is exactly what this looks like. Let's take a quick look back at our inspiration tablecloth. If you remember, that tablecloth was $280, which was far too much for us to pay. And after calculating all the costs that went into creating this beautiful hydrangea tablecloth, it only ended up costing me $22.24, which means that we saved over $250 creating our own gorgeous tablecloth. This was definitely worth it. I am so happy we recreated this gorgeous tablecloth and saved so much money in the process. I like the way this tablecloth turned out so much, I'm just gonna leave it here for the rest of the time so you can admire it. Now our next dupe is actually a dupe within a dupe. Our first item that we are going to recreate is this beautiful Lenox plate. I love the size, the shape, and the flowers that are on. Those are so pretty. And look at that gold rim around the edge. It's just simply stunning. The price of this plate is $46.95, which isn't bad, but it is still pretty expensive for one singular plate. Now we are going to combine this dupe with another dupe. The second one is this Castilla plate and plate rack from Payne's Gray. I love the way this looks. The gold plate holder is so pretty, and the price of this item is $82. So now can you see the vision? We've got our plate and we have the plate rack that we are going to combine. So I needed something that would fit the bill to combine these pieces. Well, while I was at Ross, I happened to come across this gorgeous plate and stand. It's very similar to our inspiration piece. It has the same feeling, the same design, the same size, but not the same price. I was able to purchase this piece for the low clearance price of $4.99. Now I am a little iffy about the plate that's in the center. The surface looks like it's vinyl, so we are definitely going to be changing that. The first thing that we need to do is separate these two pieces. So I got out my Athena drill and I removed the screws. Once I pulled out the white plate, it was actually like this big, thick, chunky particle board plate. And then the black metal was in great shape and we are going to change that color as well. So what I'm going to do is take both of these pieces outside. I'm going to start with the plate rack. So I placed that down upside down, and I got some gold Rust-Oleum spray paint, and I began to spray this piece. I sprayed the underside. I made sure that the legs of this metal stand was completely coated in the gold spray paint. Then I let it dry for an hour. While this stand is drying, we are going to move on to our wood circle. So I got some white Krylon satin spray paint. I painted the rim of the plate and then the surface of the top. Once this was completely covered in the spray paint, I let it dry for an hour. And while that's drying, we can come back to the metal stand, flip it back over, and then continue to paint the entire thing in the gold spray paint. Once it was completely coated, I let it dry for an additional hour. Now we have our freshly painted pieces that are ready to be embellished. We're going to start with the wood round. Now on our inspiration piece, this Lenox plate had a gold rim around it, so we're going to mimic that by using some Rub and Buff. I have a tube of Rub and Buff in the color Gold Leaf, and I got a tissue. I added a dab of the Rub and Buff to the tissue and then wiped it along the rim of the wood round. I went around the circumference of this plate so it had a stunning gold rim. This Rub and Buff just takes a few minutes to dry. It's more like a wax as opposed to a paint. So in no time we have a beautiful new rim around this wood round. To create our blue florals and gold accents, we are going to head on over to our Cricut design space.
I scrolled down and I selected this pretty bunch of flowers right here.
Once everything was finished cutting, I hit that flashing arrow button again, which removed my material. Now I can weed away all of the excess vinyl from around my floral design. Then I took some transfer tape, placed it over the vinyl, and adhered them both together with my scraper tool. Then I removed the back. Now I can take my vinyl floral design and place it on the edge of my plate. I pressed it firmly to the surface with my scraper tool and then removed the tape. These vines look so cute and they are so similar to our inspiration piece. Now I'm going to do the same thing with those oval gold inserts that go inside of the leaves. I simply just weeded away the excess vinyl, put the transfer tape over the top. Now I can add these gold ovals right inside the leaves. Now they do line up, which is so convenient, so I just simply pressed the vinyl in the correct spot that fit right over the vines. And just like that, we are done creating this design on top of our wood round. We are now going to take both of our pieces, the gold stand and the wood round, and put them back together. I simply just put that round right back in place, flipped it over, and replaced those screws. And now we are completely finished. Look at how pretty our plate stand looks, you guys. The stand and the design on top is simply stunning. What a gorgeous decorative piece to have. This could be displayed in so many areas of your home. We're going to be calculating the cost of this in a different way. We're going to count the plate and the stand as one piece. So that was $128.95 if I added both of those pieces together. After calculating all the costs that went into creating my beautiful plate and stand, it was only $17.99. So we saved over $100 from our inspiration pieces by creating this ourselves. I think ours looks so similar to both of our inspiration pieces, but it definitely came in at a much more affordable price. Our next dupe is from the Paragold website. It's this beautiful table vase. I love the white and the gold accents, the stripes and the handles. Everything about this table vase is simply stunning, except for the price. It is on sale though right now. It's on sale for $412, which I still do not want to pay. So let's recreate it for less. First, we need a vase. I was at Hobby Lobby in the clearance section and I came across these vases. They are the perfect shape and the silhouette is so similar. And you cannot beat the price of $6.24. So I picked up 2 because I love having a pair. Now, the things that I did not like about these vases was the top rim and base had a bumpy, uneven texture, and the black and cream was a little too stark for my taste. There was also a crackle effect on the vase, and I prefer a smooth, cohesive color. To get that color, I'm going to take my vases outside and spray them in some white Krylon spray paint. I made sure that the surface of the vases were completely covered in this white spray paint. I sprayed along the bottom and the sides. Once everything had been sufficiently covered in the paint, I let these vases dry for 1 hour. What caught my attention on these vases in the first place was the beautiful gold accents on there. The stripes along the top, middle, and bottom were so pretty, and I loved the handles. To create our stripes, I'm going to be using some blue painter's tape. I went around the circumference of the vase. I made sure that the tape was pressed firmly to the container. Next, I moved on to the center of the vase. I added a line of tape to create a border. Then I left about 1/4 of an inch in between the bottom and the top line of tape. I taped along the bottom portion. I went around the entire circumference of the vase and made sure that the tape was pressed firmly to the container. To create our gold detail, I'm going to be using some gold rub and buff. So I got a paper towel and this gold rub and buff. I added a dab of this rub and buff to the paper towel and then wiped it onto my container. I added a decent amount. I wanted to make sure that the gold was on my container really well and that the saturation level was high. Once I was finished with the baseline, I moved on to the center line. I added a decent amount of the rub and buff to the vacant area in between the 2 pieces of blue painter's tape. I went around the entire circumference of the vase and added a thick layer of rub and buff. Finally, I moved up to the rim and did the exact same thing by adding the rub and buff to the top portion of this vase. Once I was finished with my first vase, I moved on to the second vase and I did the exact same steps. I taped it off and then I added the rub and buff to the bottom, the middle, and the top. This gold leaf rub and buff does not take very long to dry. It's more like a wax, so I waited maybe 20 minutes and then I could remove the blue painter's tape. I love how sharp and crisp these lines are. They look professional. And the gold is the perfect tone. Our inspiration piece had some gold rings on either side of the container. So what I'm gonna do is use some knobs. Again, these were from Hobby Lobby. They are almost identical to our inspiration piece. And we don't even need to change the paint color on this. It's already the perfect shade of gold. So what I did was I removed the screw, the washer, and the nut from the back of the knob. Then I got some crazy glue and hot glue. Now the crazy glue is going to hold our knobs onto the vase long term, but while we're waiting for that to dry, the hot glue will hold it in place. So I added both the crazy glue and the hot glue to each of the 4 knobs and then pressed them firmly to the vase. Once everything was in place, I let it dry overnight. Okay, you guys, we're done with our 2 vases. Look at how stunning these are. They are simply gorgeous. I love those knobs. Look how cute those knobs are. And the gold stripes on there are just perfect. They're not too much of a detail, but they definitely add a touch of class and sophistication. And of course, our vases came in at a much more reasonable price. After calculating all the costs that went into creating 2 vases, it was $38.45, which is a huge savings over our $412 inspiration piece. And if I would have bought 2 of their containers, it would have been $824. So we saved $785.55. That's huge. So look in the clearance section, you guys. They always have some fantastic things, and all you need to do is use a little creativity to recreate them into something fabulous. We had an amazing savings, and I think our vases are just as beautiful. I personally love to switch out my bedding and I do it on a regular basis. It's amazing how making a simple change can update a space. Now, my inspiration pillow came from the Paragold website. It's this fawn spotted pillow cover and pillow insert. I love the animal print. It's a unique design, but it's neutral and classy. This pillow cover and insert is originally $243, but don't worry, it's on sale right now for $203, which is still too expensive for me to pay. So what we're gonna do is create our own. Now, in the past, you have seen that I love using pillow covers, and you can get them so affordably. My favorite place to get them is at Hobby Lobby because they have such a huge variety. They are a great size, but they are also very affordable. I found this 18 by 18 inch white pillow covering, and you guys, it was only $3.99. That is so cheap. I could not buy the fabric and a zipper and put the time and effort into making my own pillow covering for $3.99. So I scooped up this pillow covering, and it's going to be a great blank slate to work with. Hobby Lobby also has a huge variety of fabric, and I cannot believe that I found this animal print there. This fabric is an almost identical match to our inspiration fabric. And this week, all the fabric is 40% off, so we got it for a great price. Now, instead of sewing my fabric to my pillow covering, what we're gonna do is get some Heat and Bond Ultra Hold Iron-On Adhesive. A sheet of 17 inches by 1 yard was only $3.49. What I'm gonna do first is get our fabric and cut it into an 18 by 18 inch square. I'm going to cut it to the exact same size as our pillow covering. So I got out my self-healing mat and my rotary cutter. I took my ruler and my rotary cutter and I cut down one side of the fabric, then moved over to the 18-inch mark and I cut the other side. Finally, I cut the bottom with the rotary cutter, and now I have a perfectly sized 18 by 18 inch square that's going to fit over the top of my pillow cover. Now we're going to be using the Ultra Bond adhesive, so I pulled it out of the bag and I put it over the self-healing mat. Now the problem with this sizing on this specific sheet was that it only goes to 17 inches and we need 18 inches. So what I did was I cut a 17 by 18 inch square and then cut an additional strip of 1 inch by 18 inches. There are two sides to this adhesive. There's the side that has the paper on it, and then there's the textured side that's on the bottom. So what we're gonna do is flip our fabric over so the decorative side is facing down. Then take the adhesive sheet, put the sticky side against the fabric, and have the paper side facing up. Then grab your iron and set it to a medium-high setting. I put mine on the cotton setting, so it was hot, but it wasn't as hot as it could get. So what you're gonna do with your iron is you're gonna put it over the paper and leave it in place for about 2 seconds. You can visibly see the adhesive change colors underneath. It becomes more transparent. Continue to iron this adhesive to the back of the fabric. Keep the iron moving, but make sure it stays over each part of the fabric for 2 seconds. I continued to iron the entire thing. Now that the adhesive is bonded to the fabric, you can cut out whatever shape you want. If you want to do a heart or a star or a pumpkin for fall, now's your time to do that. Now, because mine is just going to be a square, I'm going to leave it alone. Once you're finished with this step, you can remove the paper. Just peel it right off. Next, I took my pillow covering, I flattened it out, and then I grabbed my fabric that had the bond on it and placed it over the top. Once it was lined up and in place, I grabbed my iron again and put it over the top of the fabric. This time you're going to want to leave your iron in one location for about 8 seconds. You want to make sure that that heat transfers and the adhesive is hot and fuses to your fabric. Make sure that every part of the fabric has had the iron go over the top so that it's been heated properly. That way your fabric will bond together. Look at how well this fabric has bonded to the pillow covering. The extra fabric and the adhesive stiffens the pillow as well. I like my pillows to stand up straight and be nice, crisp, and sharp. Now what I'm going to do with my pillow covering now that everything is fused together is I'm going to fill it with a pillow insert. I prefer a down pillow insert to a cotton poly insert. The down feathers are more malleable, which makes your pillow covering look more expensive. And here we are with our beautiful pillow covering. You guys, look at this. It looks like it always was meant to be this way. It looks like we purchased it just like this. No one would know that we just fused it together and that this fabric was purchased separately. I can't even tell you how much I love this pillow covering, you guys. It's so pretty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the center of the pillows that are already on my bed. This pillow freshens up this bedding. The animal print pillow matches so well with the neutrals that I already have, but I love the unique and stylized design of the animal print on this pillow covering. It completely elevates the look of my bedding. Now I'm going to take my beautiful pillow covering and put it right up next to our inspiration pillow. You guys, you would not know that these were different pillows. They look identical. But of course, one thing that is not identical is the price. Our Paragold pillow covering and insert was $203 and that was on sale. And then after calculating all the costs that went into creating my pillow covering, it was $13.47. You guys, we saved hundreds of dollars making this ourselves. And it looks just as luxurious. Now my inspiration wreath is from Derby Creek Trading. This is a champagne toast velvet leaf gold dipped magnolia wreath. Pretty fancy, right? I love the color tone of this wreath. It's neutral. The flowers are so pretty and I love the gold accents. Now our inspiration wreath is so pretty, but it comes at a pretty penny. It is $199, which is just too much for me to pay. So we're going to recreate one for much, much less. Now first up, we need some wreaths. One of my favorite design tricks is to shop off season. As soon as that holiday is over, go shopping and buy things for half off, 60% off, 70% off. In this case, I was at Michael's and I found these gold wreaths. They were 70% off, you guys. Yes, they're Christmas wreaths, but we're gonna make them look perfect for all year round. And in the end, they were only $11 a piece. They've been in my closet upstairs just waiting for a chance to be beautified, and today is their day. These wreaths have a lot of sparkle on them, so I put some paper down underneath to contain the mess that we're going to make. Now, along with our wreath, we need some flowers. So I headed over to Hobby Lobby. I found this stem of leaves that are a perfect imitation. I took these leaves and cut them off the larger stem so I had individual leaves. I'm using my floral cutters. Once I had all of my leaves cut, I got some hot glue and I added the hot glue to the stem of the leaves and then pressed them to the wreath. I'm going to add these leaves sporadically throughout the wreath. I'm gluing them in areas that are similar to our inspiration wreath. Once I have the right amount of leaves glued down on my first wreath, I moved on to my second wreath and I did the exact same thing. I snipped the leaves off the large branch so I had individual leaves and then hot glued them to the wreath. These leaves are a fantastic neutral background that's going to make my wreath feel full and lush. Now we need some magnolia flowers. I had a hard time finding the mini magnolia flowers, the little baby ones, so we are going to upgrade a little bit and get some bigger mommy magnolia flowers. They're going to work just as well. I found these at Hobby Lobby, and then I'm also intermixing these larger magnolia flowers with some smaller white and cream flowers. I pulled my magnolia flower off the stem, added hot glue to the bottom of the flower, and then pressed it to the wreath. I have 3 large magnolia flowers per wreath, and I spread them out equidistant from each other. Once all of the large magnolia flowers were glued in place, I added hot glue to the smaller flowers and filled in the vacant spaces. Once the first wreath had all of its magnolia flowers glued onto it, I moved over to my second wreath and I did the exact same thing. I hot glued the large magnolia flowers first, and I'm placing them in the same location as my first wreath. I want these wreaths to look identical. Once the large magnolia flowers have been glued in place, I moved on to the smaller flowers. Again, I glued them to the wreath in the same areas as my first wreath. If you noticed, I have a bit of a gap at the bottom of each of the wreaths where I didn't put any flowers down. Now, I did this for a reason because I am going to be taking a few creative liberties on this design. I want to personalize it, and we're going to do it with a sash. So we're going to be doing a dupe within a dupe on this project. So the sash that I want to mimic is from Etsy. This sash is so pretty. I love the formal bee monogram. This sash, however, is $42. I know we can make one for so much less. So while I was at Hobby Lobby, I was just browsing up and down the aisles and I came across some sashes, you guys. I didn't even know that they sold sashes. Now, these sashes are actually for like a beauty queen to wear and say, hey, I'm the winner. But we're gonna use them to create our own decorative sash. Now, these sashes were only $2.99. These sashes are satin, and I love how wide they are. This was such a great find. Now I'm going to create my bee monogram on my Cricut Maker. I'm going to be using some iron-on vinyl. I had the maker cut out the bee, and then I also created a leaf wreath that's going to go around my monogram bee. Once everything was cut out, I weeded away the excess vinyl from my design and letter. This sash was stuck together, so I cut it so it had some pointed ends. And then I took my iron-on decal. I did the bee first and I placed it on the end of the sash. Then I got my easy press and put it over the top. I left it there for 30 seconds, then pulled it off and removed the protective coating. Then I grabbed my gold wreath and placed that over the top of the bee monogram. I put my easy press over the top of the vinyl, left it there for an additional 30 seconds, removed it, and then peeled away the protective coating. Once I was finished adding the monogram to the first sash, I moved on to the second sash and did the exact same thing. I put my bee down first, put the easy press over the top, set the timer for 30 seconds, removed the protective coating, and then put the gold wreath around the bee. Again, I put the easy press over the top for 30 seconds, and then I was able to remove the protective coating away from the wreath. Look at how amazing this monogram looks on this sash. Customized items always look more expensive because they're personalized to you. I love the font of the bee and the navy blue color. I also love that we used a different color for the wreath. The gold looks so elegant. This was easy, cheap, and it was a great way to personalize these satin sashes. Our inspiration was $42 from Etsy, so if we were to purchase two of those, it would be $84, and our sashes ended up to be $8.98, which is such a great savings. And now we have a personalized sash that we can put on our wreath. So what I'm going to do is take our sash and tie it into a bow. Once both of them were tied into a bow, I took a segment of floral wire. This is about 6 inches. I wrapped it around the center of the bow, twisted the wire together in the back, then took the tails of the wire and wrapped it around the wreath, and then twisted the wire ends together in the back so that the sash adhered to the wreath. Now we are completely finished with our personalized wreaths. These look so pretty. I love the way that the florals and the leaves coordinate together. The gold wreath was such a great find, and it gives that sparkle and sheen that adds a touch of pizzazz. And because we added the sash with the monogram, it's tailor-made for our family, so when people come to our home, they know that they're in the right place. We recently got our front door painted. It used to be a muddy brown color and I never did like it. So now it's this gorgeous tone of blue-gray. The color is Booth Bay Gray by Benjamin Moore. These doors are so plain and they are just crying out for these wreaths to be put on. So what I'm gonna do is get some command hooks and place them on each door. And then I took my wreaths and placed them on the command hook. These wreaths are beautiful, they're inviting and classy. They look expensive because of the neutral color scheme with the gold, but also because of the monogram. Even though we did play around with the wreath design just a little bit, we added the additional sash, I still think it looks so similar to our inspiration wreath. Now, if you remember, this wreath was $199 a piece, so if we were to purchase two, it would be $398. And after calculating the costs that went into creating both of my wreaths, it was only $45.98. So we got two for hundreds less. And in my opinion, they're even more beautiful than our inspiration wreaths. They are an elegant first impression when you come to my home. Our next tie-in dupe is this Tolan Mini Hurricane. Again, this is from the Horchow website. It's a great basic piece that would stand the test of time. The size is fantastic and I love the gold base. What we do not love is the price of $285. I know that we could make one for less. So the first thing we need is a glass container. Now, if you watched last week's episode, you saw me and some of my favorite friends go on a little shopping trip to Goodwill. And during that shopping trip, I found this beautiful cylindrical glass container. The size was fantastic, and so was the price. It was only $6.99. So we already have our container. What we need next is a gold base. Hobby Lobby has those wood rounds that I love so much. They're a great size. They have a beautiful detail along the rim, and the price of these wood rounds are only $3.49, which is fantastic. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna sand down this wood round first because sometimes some of the edges are a little uneven and bumpy. So I sanded down the edge and the top and the bottom of this wood round to get it very smooth. Now it's prepped and ready for paint. I'm gonna take it outside and I'm gonna spray it in some gold Rust-Oleum spray paint. I painted the bottom and the sides of this wood round first. Then I flipped it over and I put it on top of that lid again to raise it up. And I painted the top and the sides once more in this gold spray paint. Once everything was sufficiently covered, I let it dry for 1 hour. Now I can take my large glass container and place it over the top of the gold round. And ta-da, we're done with this dupe. I know you might be thinking, wah wah, that was pretty basic, but that's okay. Sometimes the basic pieces are the best. And we were able to save ourselves so much money. After calculating all the costs that went into creating my hurricane, it came in at a total of $13.48, which is a $271.52 savings over our inspiration piece. I'm going to show you 3 different ways how to style this hurricane. So let's start off with the first. Since it's spring, we're gonna start off styling it for this season. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this smaller Dollar Tree vase, I'm gonna put it in the center. Now this is gonna give stability to the other items that we're gonna put around it. Next, we're gonna get some springtime Hershey Kisses, pour those around. This is fun because the wrappers on these Hershey Kisses are pastel, which is perfect for spring. Okay, so now we've got our bottom layer of Hershey Kisses. Now we're gonna take some marshmallow bunnies and I'm gonna keep them in a layer of 2. So I'm just going to put them just like this and I'm going to pop them right in front of the vase. So I've got my cute little bunnies. We're gonna pop those right inside. I've got my last little layer I'm gonna put over here. So now my marshmallows and my Hershey Kisses are in my container. I'm going to get a bunch of flowers. I chose some pretty pink pastel flowers. I'm just gonna bend the stem really tight and just place them right inside of my vase. And that is it, you guys. How cute is this? Hurricanes like this are perfect for seasonal decorations. You could put in some red, white, and blue candy for the 4th of July, Halloween candy, Christmas candy, Valentine's. The possibilities are endless. So this is just one way that we can style this hurricane. I love the way it looks. It's perfect for spring. Seriously, you guys, I can't get over how absolutely adorable this thing is. And you saw how easy it was. So this is styling number 1. Let's move on to styling it another way. The second way is we're going to add a cute little floral arrangement inside. So what I did was I got some floral foam, I added it to the bottom, and I reuse my floral foam. Just because it has a couple little holes in it doesn't mean that you have to toss it. I reuse my floral foam all the time. So yes, this foam looks a little sketchy, but it's gonna get the job done. So once my floral foam was in place, I got some moss and I placed that over the floral foam to hide that. Next, I took some stems of roses. I had cut these stems short so that they would fit inside of the container. I poked the individual stems into the floral foam, which holds them upright. I added about 5 to 6 stems, and that's it. This display is so whimsical. It looks like a little terrarium. If you wanted to, you could add some little fairy houses in there or some rocks. Succulents would be fantastic. Any kind of lighthearted or fanciful objects in here would be so cute. The next way we're going to style it is perfect for indoor or outdoor. So what I'm going to do is grab several handfuls of white pebbles. I placed these little rocks inside the bottom of the container. Next, I got 3 battery-operated candles. I turned them on. I took the tallest candle first and placed it in the back of the glass vase. I moved those rocks around and nestled that candle right inside the center of the rocks. I placed the medium height candle to one side and then added the shorter candle to the opposite side. This centerpiece would be beautiful for dining outside during the summertime, but it would also be beautiful on a tablescape inside. I love the flicker that the candles add. The natural elements of the rocks and the fire are rustic and unrefined. Now I just showed you 3 ways to style it, but the possibilities are as endless as your creativity is. Would a dupe video really be complete if I didn't do a flower arrangement? I don't think so. So next we're going to be doing a flower arrangement. I was on the Horchow website just scrolling because I love their items, but their items are so expensive, you guys. So when I saw this gorgeous pink peony arrangement in a candle vase, I knew I wanted to recreate it. I loved the glass vase and the flowers on this arrangement. It's cheerful, it's happy, but what's not cheerful is the price of $400. I'm not going to pay that, therefore we are going to make our own. Now I was at Ross and I just lucked out, you guys. I found these glass vases that are going to work beautifully in this dupe. I loved the rippling on the glass, and the base of this vase is so pretty. These vases were on clearance for $3.49. That is a steal. So now we have our vases. We need some flowers. So while I was at Hobby Lobby, I headed over to the floral section and I found these gorgeous pink peonies. I only needed 2 bunches. I got 1 bunch that was a solid pink and one that had a variety of different shades of pink. We are going to create a tape grid over the top of our vase. So I grabbed some Scotch tape and I ran 2 lines of tape horizontally and 2 lines of tape vertically. I love using this tape grid because it will hold your flowers upright and keep them in place. So now that my tape grid is on, I'm going to grab my first bunch of peonies, bend the stem, and then place it in between the tape. Once my first bunch of peonies were in the vase, I grabbed my second bunch. Again, I bent the stem and I placed it in the vase. At this point, it's just a matter of arranging the flowers and placing them in similar areas as our inspiration flower arrangement. This arrangement was so easy to create, especially because we left these in bunches. We didn't even trim them at all. All we did was bend the stem and place them in the vase. This arrangement looks so similar to our $400 Horchow inspiration piece, but after adding up all the costs, ours was only $23.38. And you could bring the price down even further by going to Hobby Lobby or getting your flowers on sale. The week that I went, they were not on sale, so I had to pay full price. But if you wait for them to go on sale, you can definitely bring down the price even further. But nonetheless, I absolutely love this arrangement. It's going to be a perfect addition to my fireplace mantle. So what I'm going to do is add my beautiful floral arrangement on top of my fireplace mantle right here. To the side, I have a candle. This is a beautiful hexagonal shaped candle with a gold top. And then I've got this tall white ginger jar that I placed on top of a marble riser. I love how there's varying heights right here. We've got the tall, the short, and the medium, so your eye can move across the design. Now over here, to give the other side some weight, what I have is a print. This print is from my website. The chunky gold frame is perfect in here, and to give it some extra height, what I did was I put it on top of a frame holder. Another cheap, easy way to freshen up your space is by swapping out your accessories. The flowers and these accessories make this room look fresh and bright. I have a question for you guys. Do you buy multiples of one item? Because I can't help myself, I always do. So guess what I did? I purchased 2 of these vases. There were 2 of them there and I could not leave this one behind, especially for the price of $3.49. I had to have it. So what we're going to do with this glass vase is reimagine it into an apothecary jar. Now you might be wondering, how are we going to do that? But it's so easy. All I did was borrow a lid from an apothecary jar that I already had. This glass lid fits perfectly over the top of this vase. And now I have this gorgeous apothecary jar. And as you know, apothecary jars can be so expensive. When I was looking online, I found one that was similar and it was $348, you guys. We got ours for $3.49 plus the cost of a lid. So if you're at home and you have vases, but you also have some lids that go to some other jars, swap them out and see if you can turn your vase into an apothecary jar. So if you're looking to get some new home accessories on a budget, give this hack a try. Is some giant lampposts about as tall as me, because that seems reasonable, right? Well, I needed them and I didn't want to buy them because they were so expensive. These beautiful lampposts are from the Perigold website. This Snowing Snowman lamppost is a stunning white lamppost. It's almost 6 feet tall and it's got an adorable snowman winter scene inside of the lantern. I thought this was so adorable, but the price is not adorable. For one of these lampposts, it is $398. I'm not going to purchase them, but we are going to make them. Now, we are going to actually make 2 of them and we are going to put them on either side of my TV. Do you remember when we did that giant entertainment makeover? Well, I've got these 2 niches on either side of the TV. And originally I thought, you know, I'm just gonna put some Christmas trees in there and it's gonna look fabulous. But the more I got decorating and the more I looked at these areas, I thought I needed to do something out of the ordinary and show-stopping. So what we need first of all is a container. I actually have 2 containers that we are going to use. I purchased these several years ago at HomeGoods. The detailing along the edges is fantastic. I love the color scheme of the white and the gold. During the year, they stay on the countertop in my dining room, but we are going to move them over to the family room and use them as our base for our lampposts. So now we need a post itself. I needed something that was sturdy enough that it could hold up a heavy lantern and a bunch of greenery. So I headed over to Lowe's and I found some PVC pipe. I got an 8-foot long piece of PVC piping, and this is going to be the actual post itself. I want to be able to use my containers in different projects later on, so I didn't want to make this post permanent, but it definitely needed to be held in place very sturdily. I ended up getting some great stuff. This is used for gap fillers. It's an expanding foam, so if you have a hole that needs to be filled up, this is a great solution. I purchased 2 of these cans at Lowe's as well. Now I've got my items to create my lamppost. So what I'm going to do is take that PVC pipe and saw it into 2 sections. I got a pencil and marked out the size I needed. I grabbed my gloves and my Aaliyah safety glasses. I took my jigsaw and cut the pipe into 2 45-inch segments. The opening in the bottom of the container is quite large, and it actually goes all the way down to the bottom, which is fantastic for us. So what I did was I took the pipe and I put it in the center of the container and made sure the bottom of the pipe touched the bottom of the container. Then I took a can of Great Stuff and began to spray this expanding foam into the container. You want to make sure that your pipe is directly in the center. We do not want a ski wampus pipe. I sprayed an entire can of the Great Stuff into the container. Once I was finished filling up my first urn with the Great Stuff, I moved on to the second urn. I placed the PVC pipe all the way down to the bottom, took my second can of Great Stuff and sprayed it into the container. I made sure that the pipe was completely encased in the Great Stuff, and once again, I used an entire can. If you look at the container right now, it looks like it's not filled up all the way, but give it a couple of hours and it will begin to expand and grow. It grew and grew, and as it grew, it hardened as well. Once several hours had passed, this was my result. It looked like the Loch Ness Monster. It took on a life of its own, and it definitely filled up that entire container. So definitely be prepared for the Great Stuff foam to expand. Now, of course, I'm not going to leave it like this, so I got a serrated knife and I simply just trimmed off the excess. I wanted the top of the foam to be even with the top of the container. All right, our PVC pipe is secure in our container. Now, the thing about the PVC pipe is that it did have some scratches and some dings and some discoloration. So what I'm going to do is paint it. First, I need to protect the urn, so I got a grocery bag. I made a hole in the top and just put it right over the top of the urn and the pipe. And then I got some Krylon spray paint. This is a white satin spray paint, and I sprayed the entire pipe. I made sure that everything was covered, especially the dings and the scratches and the discoloration. Because it's white, I just needed to do a quick top coat over the pipes so that the color on the surface of the pipe was cohesive. Once the pipes had been painted, I let them dry for an hour. We need some lanterns to go on top of our lamp post. We are going to use some lanterns that I already have. I purchased these lanterns several years ago at Hobby Lobby, and if you've been with me for a long time, you know that these used to be hanging right here, right next to either side of my giant mirror. The wall-mounted lanterns were fantastic on either side, but at the end of the day, I needed some more light in this space, and so I swapped them out for these lamps. So these lanterns have been in a closet just collecting dust for the past probably 2 years. So these are going to be very beautiful in our lamp posts. I love the size and the shape of these lanterns. There's a lot of detail on it, and I love the scroll work at the bottom. What I don't like about these lanterns is the color. It looks like cement. It's got that bumpy, rough texture, and it also has a few rust spots. It's rustic, and that is not the look that we are going for. So we are going to paint it. First, I need to remove the glass panels that are inside the lantern. Luckily, they were removable. and they needed to be washed anyways. By removing these glass panels, it saves me a lot of time and effort trying to tape those glass pieces off. Then I took my lanterns outside. I'm spraying them in the same Krylon white spray paint as I used on the pole. I made sure that the entire lantern was completely covered in the white spray paint. I painted the top and the insides and the scroll detail. There were a lot of areas that needed to be painted on these lanterns so that they would be properly coated in the spray paint. Once both of my lanterns had been painted, I let them dry for 1 hour. These lanterns already look so much better. I love this paint color, but it is a little stark, so we are going to add some gold highlights. I'm going to be using some gold leaf Rub and Buff. I took a tube of the Rub and Buff and a paper towel. I added a dab of the Rub and Buff to the paper towel, and then I wiped it on the grommets on the top of the lantern. Then I moved on to the cutout details above. I wiped this area in the gold Rub and Buff, and then I highlighted the line right above it. I added some to the top finial and the ring, and then down at the bottom, I just wanted to highlight the edges, so I added some gold Rub and Buff just to the edges. That way it wasn't completely coated in the gold, and then I added a little bit more to the bottom finial. Once my first lantern had the gold highlights on it, I moved on to the second lantern. I repeated the process on this lantern. I added the gold Rub and Buff in the exact same areas as I did on my first lantern. And since this Rub and Buff is more like a wax, it only took a few minutes to dry. When I was making the decision about what I was going to use for my pole, I specifically wanted a pipe because I needed the hole in the center, because that way the bottom of my lantern would fit into the hole of the pipe. Now it does, but I want to make sure that it's not going to topple over and that it's secure in place. So when I was putting together my Christmas tree, you know how the pole of the bottom of the Christmas tree goes into the base of your Christmas tree, and it has those little screws that you can screw it into the side to make sure that your tree doesn't wiggle and shake and fall over? Well, we're going to copy that, and we're going to do that to the top of the pipe. So what I did was I got my drill, and I drilled 3 holes equidistant from each other at the top of the PVC pipe. I'm going to need these holes for access to put in some machine screws. Then I took the lantern and poked the bottom of the lantern into the top of the PVC pipe. Then I screwed in my machine screws into the holes. The machine screws have a flat bottom, so they will not damage the bottom of the lantern. Once the machine screws were in place, it was now the moment of truth. Me and my son, Blake, took a step back, and hallelujah. The lantern stayed in place. So now we know that this is a success. We can move on and do the exact same thing with our second PVC pipe. I drilled the 3 holes in the top of the PVC pipe and then took my lantern and put it inside, then screwed the machine screws in place. You guys, this is looking so good. I'm so excited. Can you see the vision now? All right, so I'm going to bring them back inside, and I'm going to put them in the niches on either side of my TV. These lampposts fit in these niches perfectly. I wanted them to be grand and take up the space because it is a fairly large space. Now that the structural part of our lamppost is completed, it's time to move on to the fun part, which is beautifying our lampposts. Now, if you remember the inspiration piece, there was a cute little snowman village at the top of the lantern. I like that, but we are definitely going to go for a more elegant look here in this space. Behind me, I've got my kitchen all decorated for Christmas, and the theme in there was a snowy winter village. Well, we want to carry that over into this room as well, and every snowy village has lampposts. But we want ours to be beautiful and elegant. So what I'm going to do is create some garlands. I have 2 garlands that I'm going to be using. I have a frosted garland and a pine garland, and both of these I purchased at Walmart. Now what I've done with my other garlands is I've intertwined these 2 garlands together. I did that on the garland in my bedroom, and I did that here on the garland in the family room area. So we're going to do that exact same thing. I'm going to take both of these garlands, I'm going to lay them out, and then I'm going to intermix them by simply taking the branches and wrapping them around each other. This way I get a good mix of frosted branches and plain green branches. Not only is this a great way to add color variation to your garland, but it is an inexpensive way to create a fuller garland. You get a big beefy garland for an affordable price. I actually ended up cutting this garland in two because we didn't need that long of a segment to wrap around our lampposts. They're not that long. So I have two of these beautiful garland pieces. We need a little bit of shimmer and shine in our garland. And what I used here in my family room garland was a strand of beautiful champagne gold sparkly leaves. I purchased this garland at Hobby Lobby. I got a whole bunch of them. They were $13.99, but they were 50% off, so they only were $7 a piece. And what I'm going to do with these sparkly leaves is I'm going to intertwine them into the pine garland. I simply intermixed these champagne leaves in with the pine branches. I did this on both of my garlands. I love the addition of the champagne leaves. It is a great color contrast, but I also love the sparkle and the shimmer and the shine that it adds to the garland. I'm going to wrap my garland around my lamppost. So I simply just took one of those pine branches and wrapped it around the lantern itself. And then I got a segment of floral wire and wrapped it around both the garland and the lantern to secure them together. And yes, I am once again going to be wearing my apron. I love my apron. I've got all kinds of little goodies I could put in the pockets, so it's definitely going to be useful helping me decorate these garlands. Once the garland had been wrapped around the lampposts, I secured the end of the garland to the foam with a floral pin. The Great Stuff foam is similar to floral foam, so I can poke things into the foam just like a floral pin. Up next, we're going to be using some wide white ribbon. I purchased this ribbon at Michael's in the wedding section. I used it on both my garland and my Christmas tree, so we're going to use it on these garlands as well. And of course, we've got to have some beautiful gold beads on our garlands. So I took a strand of these gold beads, I put it in front of the wide white ribbon, and then I attached it to the top part of the garland. Then I draped the ribbon and the beads down, took a branch from the garland, wrapped it around the ribbon and the beads to secure it in place. Then I made another loop and brought the ribbon and the beads down to the lower part of the lamppost. Then secured these items to the garland by simply wrapping a wire branch around it. On my Christmas tree, I created some bows to cover up the floral foam. We are going to make some bows again out of the same ribbon. I have this pewter and gold ribbon that I purchased at Hobby Lobby. I love the color of it, and the sparkly Christmas trees in the center are so fabulous. So I just looped this ribbon into a bow. I tied some wire around it, and then I was able to attach it to the bottom of the lantern at the top of the garland. And then I created another bow and added it down at the base. I added a few white poinsettias to the garland as well. Another recurring theme that we have in our Christmas decorations this year is pearls. I have these pearl picks, and I took a few of these pearls picks and I added them to the garland as well. Next step is some gorgeous ornaments. I have several ornaments in shades of champagne and gold. These ornaments fill up the vacant spaces on our garland, but they also tie in our color scheme. And because these are lampposts, we've got to have some light shining through our lanterns. What I'm going to use are some battery-operated flicker flame candles. These candles are on a remote, so I can easily turn them on every single night without pulling them in and out of the lantern. We are done. Look at these. I love them so much. I cannot believe how stunning they turned out. I knew creating these show-stopping lampposts was going to be a big project. It definitely was. It was a lot of hard work, but it was definitely worth all of the effort that we put into creating these lampposts. And I like these so much better than our inspiration lampposts. Mine have so much more detail on it. I love all the garlands that we added to it and the beautiful ribbons, the ornaments, the botanicals that we have. I think that our lantern is much more decorative than our inspiration lantern. The candle that we have inside of our lantern gives off the right amount of light. It's not too bright. It doesn't overwhelm the space, and it doesn't take away from both the Christmas tree and the garland. I also love the size. They're large enough that they take up the majority of the space, but they're small enough that they are still streamlined and don't overwhelm it. I'm so delighted I decided to go with a lamppost instead of a Christmas tree. The lampposts are unique, they're one of a kind, and they fit in with my overall Christmas scheme. These are a unique and fun holiday decoration that makes this room feel like it's a tucked away winter village. Now let's take a look back at our inspiration lampposts. If you remember these, they were $398 a piece. If I were to purchase 2 of them, it would be $796, which is too much for me to pay. After calculating all the costs that went into creating both of my lampposts, the grand total was $194.40. That is a great deal, you guys. And it is, however, I know that that's more expensive than I typically spend on my dupes. But if you really look at the cost breakdown, the most expensive pieces were the lantern and the base, and I already had those. I purchased those a long time ago. So if you wanted to cut down the costs on creating a lamppost for yourself, just look around your house and find items that you already have. You may already have a container that you wanted to use, and you may already have a lantern that you want to use. So you can bring down the price even further on these. But nonetheless, even still, we saved over $600 from our inspiration lampposts by duping these ourselves. I love these lampposts. They are magical. They are warm and inviting. I love the glow that they bring. It coordinates beautifully with our other decor in the room, and it also contributes to that warm, wintry village scene that I want to achieve in this space. We're going to take it down a notch, and our next dupe is not going to be near as complicated, but they are still going to be very beautiful. I have 2 chairs right here in front of my fireplace, and I have pillows in the front, and so I want to have some festive pillows that coordinate with our color scheme and our overall wintry theme. I found these pillows on the Wayfair website. I love the color scheme. It's got the pewter color in it, and this winter wreath is gorgeous. The gray ribbon is a wonderful detail. But can you believe that each one of these pillows is $204.08? No, I'm not gonna pay that. But I will take inspiration from these pillows and create some of our own. Now you guys know that I love making pillow coverings, and I have 2 places that I love the best to get affordable pillow coverings. One is IKEA, and the second is Hobby Lobby. I got 2 of these 18 by 18 inch pillow covers at Hobby Lobby. They're only $3.99 a piece, and that is such a bargain. The way that I'm going to get my wreath design is by creating a wreath on my Cricut design space and then have my Cricut maker cut it out. I weeded away the excess iron-on vinyl from around the wreath. Then I placed the vinyl in the center of my pillow cover. I took my easy press, I put it over the vinyl, which heats up the vinyl and fuses it to the pillow covering. I heated it to 330 degrees and set the timer for 30 seconds. Once my wreath had been sufficiently heated up, I removed the easy press and then peeled away the protective coating. I repeated this process on my second pillow covering. I added the vinyl to the center of the pillow covering, and then I put my easy press over the top, heated it up. Once it was sufficiently fused to the pillow covering, I removed the protective covering. These silver pewter wreaths look so beautiful in the center of our pillow covering, but they also look pretty plain. And this is where we're going to take some creative liberties, just like we took some creative liberties on our lampposts. We are going to personalize it and make it our own with some pearl beads. I purchased these beads at the Dollar Tree, and I simply just sewed them to the pillow covering right where those berries were. The inspiration pillow covering had a matte gray ribbon, and I wanted something a little fancier, so we're going to be using a satin gray ribbon. I tied it into a bow, and you guys, we are just going to hot glue this bow into the center of the wreath. We are not going to sew it on. I'm not going to wash these anyway because the pearls would most likely fall off. So this is going to be a decorative pillow that gets removed when people come over and sit down. So the hot glue will work just fine. I added the hot glue to the center of our wreath. Again, this is another variation that we are taking from the inspiration wreath. I like symmetry, so our bows are going in the center of our wreaths. Once I was done adding the silver satin ribbon bow to my second pillow covering right in the middle, then I filled them up with some down pillow inserts. I love using these feather inserts because they are more malleable than the cotton poly inserts. And we are done with our beautiful pillow coverings. You guys, look at how pretty these are. The silver pewter wreath is gorgeous. Those pretty little pearl accents, oh my goodness, I love those so much. They really elevate the look of this. It makes it look so much more luxurious, and it definitely fits in with all the other pearls that we have everywhere in our color scheme. And of course, the satin ribbon. Oh, I just love the sheen that it has. It just looks so luxurious. Now that our pillows are done, let's put them right next to our inspiration pillows from the Wayfair website. Do you remember that these were $204.08 a piece? If I were to buy 2 of these, it would cost me $408.16. That's a lot of money. Now I will say that those pillows come with an insert already in it, but I don't know if that justifies the price. Anyway, let's calculate the cost that went into creating 2 of my pillow coverings. After I had added up all the expenses, it came to $15.23. That is such a great deal, you guys. And these pillows on top of my chairs look so beautiful. Just like our lampposts, I like our dupe better than the inspiration piece. I think our pillow coverings are elegant, they're classy, and they are definitely one of a kind. They fit in beautifully with our color scheme and enhance the overall look of this space. If you like dupe videos, home decor, DIYs, room transformations, then you have come to the right place. I post weekly videos on all things related to the home, and I would love to have you subscribe so I can share those with you. Now, our next dupe is one that I've actually been keeping on the back burner for a long time. I've been wanting to do it forever, and today is our day. Now, it's going to be a little different than we typically do, but what this dupe is are these wax seals. I've seen them on Etsy, I've seen them on Instagram, and on Etsy I actually found some. You can buy a package of 50 for $48.45. I know that we can recreate some for so much less. Now, as I had mentioned last week, I'm going to be having a bridal shower, and it's this weekend, and so I thought having some wax seals would be so pretty to put all over the place, especially on some party favors for my guests to take home. So while I was looking for party favors, I was at Hobby Lobby in the party section, and I came across these wax seals. One of them was a leaf, and one of them said thank you, and they were on clearance. The leaf was only 94 cents and the thank you was $1.12. This is a very inexpensive way to test out this wax seal technique. Now, we are not going to just make some wax seals. We are going to, of course, embellish them. So what we're going to need first are some paper rounds. Now, Cricut has some scrapbook paper, and I selected this beautiful floral paper. Instead of me cutting out all of these rounds, I'm going to let my Cricut maker do it for me.
We're back in our Cricut design space, and I hit new project. This time I went over to shapes and I selected a circle, And then I went up and I sized it to the size that I needed. And then I duplicated it a whole bunch of times because we want a lot of circles. And once I had the circles, I went over and I selected make. And I don't want to save this project. I clicked on the mat and then continue. Now I can click continue again, which brings up my material, and I'm using a medium cardstock, and I selected more on the pressure.
I loaded my scrapbook paper into the Cricut Maker and then hit the start button. Once the circles were done, I hit that flashing arrow button, which released my material. Now, these circles just popped right off the mat. They hardly stuck at all, so now I have these perfectly formed circles that are going to be a one-of-a-kind backdrop for our wax seals. I am not going to be using wax. Instead, I am going to be using some hot glue because the hot glue will dry semi-transparent. So what I'm going to do is add a dab of hot glue. Now you're going to want to make sure that the hot glue covers the entire surface of the scrapbook circle before you take your stamp and put it inside. So once the circle was covered in the hot glue, I took my thank you stamp and I pressed it into the hot glue. You're going to want to leave it there for about a minute. Once that minute was up, you can pull away the stamp and you have this beautiful design. So I just continued to add that hot glue and then take the stamp and press it into the hot glue. Oh, and I should mention that you're going to want to put a nonstick surface underneath this because you don't want that hot glue to stick to whatever surface that you're working with. I'm actually using my baking Silpat. Don't worry, I will give this a thorough wash before I start using it again with food, but the Silpat worked so great. Nothing stuck to it. So I just continued to add the hot glue to all of my round circles and then press the stamp into the hot glue. Once I was finished with all of my thank yous, I moved on to our smaller circles. Now the larger circles were 1 inch in diameter. These are 3/4 inch in diameter, and this scrapbook paper is actually double-sided. You've got the flowers on the one side and then you have this pretty pink design on the other side. So for our smaller flowers, we're going to be flipping it over and using this pink side. So again, all I did was I added the hot glue to the scrapbook paper and then took my smaller leaf stamp and pressed that into the hot glue. Left it there for about a minute and then removed it. I continued to do this process with all of my round circles to get these beautiful wax seals. We have a bit of a problem. You cannot see the design that we put into the hot glue when it's semi-transparent. So to remedy that, what I did was I headed over to the Dollar Tree and I got a gold paint pen. So what I'm going to do with this paint pen is I'm going to trace around the raised detail that we have on our seal. I traced over the design to reveal the design and make it more prominent. And when I pressed down on the hot glue, it created a ridge around the edges, so I'm going to outline the ridge as well. This simple step made all the difference in these wax seals. Now you can see the thank you perfectly, plus the gold makes our wax seals feel classy because it brings in a metallic. Once I was done tracing these out in the gold on the thank yous, I moved on to the leaves. Now these leaves were so easy to do. They were very small, so it only took me a couple minutes to trace out the leaf and the raised rim around the edge. These are such a fun design detail that you can use in a variety of different ways. Now I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you can use these for a party favor. Now what I'm going to do is get some cardboard gift bags. We're going to add some tissue paper and some fancy chocolates to our gift bag. And to tie it all together, we are going to use some ribbon. Now this blue ribbon is ribbon that I used in my projects last week. I got it in the clearance aisle at Hobby Lobby, and to tie the projects that we did last weekend with our goodie bags, we are going to use this same blue ribbon. So I cut a segment of this blue ribbon and then I got some hot glue. I added hot glue to the end of the ribbon, then took one of my leaf wax seals and put it into the hot glue. Once that was done on one end, I moved on to the other and added another leaf wax seal over on that side. Now I can take my ribbon and thread it through the handles and then tie it into a bow. So how cute are these little tails that have the little wax seals on them? This is so cute for our first bag. Now our second bag, we are simply going to lay it on its side, then take our scrapbook round, place that in the center, and then press our stamp to the middle. After a minute, I peeled away the stamp and now my wax seal is attached to the gift bag. We want to highlight it with that gold so it can be more prominent. You can actually see the thank you. And then of course, we've got to finish it off with the same blue ribbon that we used on our first bag. All right, we've got 2 down. The last one is going to be to just take that ribbon, thread it through the handles, tie it into a bow, then add a little bit of hot glue to the center of the bow, and then press in one of our wax seals to the center. And here's what this one looks like. Look how cute that is. So we have 3 options of how to decorate our goodie bags in 3 different ways, but they all coordinate together beautifully. And then of course, the last one is to put it on an envelope. I simply just added a scrapbook round to the envelope, put some hot glue in it, pressed the stamp to it, and then highlighted it in the gold. Let's go back and remember our Etsy seals. These were $48.45 for 50. After calculating all the costs that went into creating my seals, it was $5.41. And that is with purchasing everything that I needed to create these wax seals in the future. So really, we got such a bargain, and I absolutely love the way that these wax seals look. They are a unique design that is so fun to have. This designer reversible throw pillow is from the Wayfair website. I love the 3 multi-size pumpkins and the neutral color scheme of greens and tans. The price of one of these pillows is $43.99, and I know that we can make one that's almost identical for so much less. So the first thing we need is a pillow covering. Now, I have gotten pillow coverings very affordably at a couple different places. IKEA has some great ones, but I think that my favorite ones are at Hobby Lobby. I have these 18 by 18 inch white pillow coverings, and they are only $3.99 a piece, which is such a bargain. Now, I had to think very long and hard about how I was going to get some similar pumpkins from our inspiration piece onto our pillow coverings. So what I ended up doing was going over to the fabric section at Hobby Lobby in the hopes that I was going to be able to find some kind of fabric that would mimic our inspiration piece, and no such luck. So I thought, okay, let me head on over to the seasonal section. So I went up and down the fall aisles, and I found a runner that had similar pumpkins to it. This runner had pumpkins on either side that were almost identical to our inspiration piece. The color scheme of these pumpkins are fabulous, and they fit in perfectly with my neutral color scheme. This runner was $17.99, but it was 40% off, so it brought the price down dramatically. The next step is to take this perfectly good brand new runner and cut it up. Yikes, I had to pump myself up for this step, but my reasoning is if I were to purchase some fabric, it would cost me about the same price, so it's okay that we cut up this runner. So what I did was I grabbed my fabric scissors and I took a deep breath, and then I cut this runner in half. Luckily for me, there are pumpkins on each end, so I'm actually going to be getting 2 pillows out of one runner. I cut off the twine trim that was along the bottom. This runner has 2 layers of fabric, so I cut off the back half, so I just had the top layer of fabric. Once I was done cutting the pumpkin off the first side, I flipped it around and did the exact same process on the opposite side. I cut off the fringe and then cut off the back layer of fabric, so now I have a singular layer to work with. We did it. We cut apart this runner, and I promise you it's going to be worth it. Now, the way that we are going to attach our fabric pumpkins to our pillow coverings is with some heat and bond iron-on adhesive. This again was at Hobby Lobby and it was only $3.99. I've used this heat and bond in the past and it works so good. So let me show you how I used it. Take your fabric and place it decorative side down on a heat safe surface, an ironing board, a towel. I'm using my Cricut Easy Press mat. There are two sides to this adhesive. There's like a bumpy, more textured side, and then there's the paper side. We want to put the bumpy side against the fabric and the side with the paper facing up. I heated up my iron to a medium heat, then I placed it over the top of the iron-on adhesive. I left it in place for 2 seconds and then slowly moved it around the surface of the adhesive. The heat from the iron will adhere the adhesive to the fabric. I then repeated this exact same process on my second piece of fabric. I put my adhesive bumpy side down on top and then I positioned my iron over the top and moved it around the surface until everything had been fused together. Now that everything is adhered well together, we can cut out our design. Now this is the fun part. This is when you get to cut out any design you want. I'm going to cut along the outlining of my pumpkin and leaves with some fabric scissors. The iron-on adhesive also prevents your fabric from fraying. So I cut out the pumpkin design on both pieces of fabric. Up next, we are going to remove that protective paper that's on the back. So I just peeled that off of both of my pumpkin designs, and then I placed them on top of my pillow covering. I wanted them to be closer to the bottom, so I put it where I wanted it to be, and then I took my iron, which again is set at a medium heat, and put it over the top of the fabric. This time I'm going to leave it in place for 8 seconds. You want to make sure that every part of the fabric has been heated up appropriately. The adhesive will fuse the fabric to the pillow covering. Once the first pumpkin design was adhered to the pillow covering, I moved on to the second pillow covering and did the exact same thing. I positioned the pumpkin right in the center of the fabric and then heated it up, leaving it in place for 8 seconds and moving it around slowly so the entire surface of our pumpkin design had been heated up sufficiently. Now we've got that beautiful pumpkin design fused onto our pillow covering. I'm going to fill them with a down feather pillow insert. I personally like the feather inserts better than the cotton poly because the feathers are just a little bit more malleable and they fill out the pillow covering better. And look at how beautiful our pillow covering looks. I don't know if you can see how well this fabric fuses to this pillow covering. It looks like it's one piece. You cannot tell where the fabric starts and the pillow covering ends. I love our pumpkins. They fit in perfectly with the color scheme that we want of muted tones. The beautiful fall leaves are simply stunning. We're going to put our pillow up next to our inspiration pillow and look at how similar these two pillows are. If I were to purchase 2 of these pillows from the Wayfair website, it would cost me $88.98, but that's not what we want to spend. So let's calculate how much we spent on our 2 pillow coverings. After calculating all the costs, it came in at a grand total of $22.27. That is a savings of over $65, and I think that our pillows are just as beautiful, if not more beautiful, than our inspiration piece. Our next dupe is going to be this galvanized pumpkin container. I think this is so cute, so versatile. You can add so many things during the fall to baskets like these. The problem with this container is the price of $95.99, which is very expensive. So let's see if we can recreate one that's better, in my opinion, for so much less. Now, a little while ago, I went over to Goodwill and they have all of their fall and Halloween items out. In the Halloween section, I found a basket that was so similar to our inspiration piece, I could hardly believe my eyes. This is a black pumpkin metal basket. It's a great size and the pumpkin is so cute. The problem is that it's black and it has an orange greenish stem and it is extremely plain. So not only did we score finding this piece, but it was only $5.99. So the first thing we need to do is change the Halloween black to something a little more lighter and brighter. So I took this metal basket outside and I'm going to spray it in some Krylon satin spray paint. I made sure that the front of the pumpkin was completely coated in the spray paint. I painted the side bars and also the back pumpkin. Once everything was completely coated in the spray paint, I let this basket dry for 1 hour. It already looks so much lighter and brighter now that we have changed that color. Now we're going to also change the color of the stem, and we have been changing the stem colors on so many pumpkins all season long, so why stop? What we're gonna do is get some more of that gold leaf rub and buff and a tissue. I added a dab of the rub and buff to the tissue and then wiped it over the stem. Once the first stem had been coated in the gold rub and buff, I flipped the basket around and added more to the second stem. Now rub and buff is like a wax, so it dries almost immediately, and now we have a fabulous gold stem on either side of our basket. Now even though that white color is so much lighter and brighter and fresh, it does look a little stark, so I want to tone that down. I have this pearlized metallic paint that I purchased at Michael's. I'm going to paint on this iridescent pearlized shimmer paint all over our metal basket. It's basically keeping it the same color, but it's adding a little bit of texture and a whole lot of personality. Once the first pumpkin was painted, I flipped it around and painted the other pumpkin on the opposite side. Once it was coated in the paint, I added more paint to each of the sidebars on both sides. Once everything had been painted in this pearlized white paint, I let it dry for 2 hours. Look at how much better this looks now with this pearlized paint on it. I love that iridescent shimmer that it has. You can see more of the details now, and it adds a luxurious glow. We could stop right now and put our pumpkin basket up against the galvanized pumpkin basket, but that's not what we're going to do. We're going to add a little bit more fall to our basket by adding some leaves to it. Every pumpkin needs some leaves. I found this package of wood pumpkins at Hobby Lobby, and of course they were 40% off. I'm going to paint them because we don't want them to look plain. And we're going to paint them in some Krylon gold spray paint. So I took my leaves outside and I sprayed the surface of these leaves and the sides. Once all 3 of these leaves had been painted in the gold spray paint, I let it dry for an hour. Then I came back, I flipped them over, and I painted the opposite side. Once again, I wanted to make sure that the surface was completely coated in the spray paint and all of the sides. Once it had been painted, I let it dry for another hour. In order to hang our leaves onto our basket, we need some holes. So I took 2 of these leaves and then I grabbed my Athena drill and I drilled some holes down by the stem so that we have a way to hang them on our basket. Now with the 3rd leaf, we're going to do something completely different with that. So I'm going to drill a hole in the bottom of the stem. This hole is about 1/2 inch deep. I have some thin ribbon, and the color of this ribbon is a grayish bluish tone. We have a whole bunch of gray ribbon around our house, so this ribbon will coordinate perfectly with the other ribbon that we have on our pumpkins throughout our home. So what I did was I threaded this ribbon through the holes on our leaves. Once I was finished threading it through the first leaf, I threaded it through the second leaf. I wrapped the ends of the ribbon around the pumpkin stem and then I tied it into a bow. Now my pumpkin has some festive leaves that add so much detail to this basket. The 3rd leaf we're going to actually turn into a leaf pick. So I got a wooden skewer and I added some hot glue to the tip of the skewer and then I poked it into the hole at the bottom of the stem. We're going to add this leaf pick to our basket in just a minute, but first we need to create a floral arrangement. First up, we need some floral foam. Now we want to camouflage this floral foam. I took a block of floral foam, burlap, and some floral pins. I placed the burlap down first, added the floral foam to the center, wrapped the burlap around the top, and then cut it. To secure the burlap to the floral foam, I'm going to be using floral pins. So I simply just folded the burlap around the floral foam and tacked it all together with the floral pins. Now we're going to take our block of foam and place it inside of our basket. Next up, we need to get some flowers. I found a multi-stem of magnolia flowers at Ross for only $5.99. These are beautiful white magnolias and they look like they are quality flowers. I'm also going to be using a white velvet plush pumpkin, some cream leaves, and of course our wood leaf pick. I simply added the pumpkin, the magnolia leaves, and the wood pumpkin pick to the container. I pressed them all into the floral foam, which kept everything in place. Look at how festive and fun our floral arrangement in our pumpkin basket looks. This is gorgeous. I love the white magnolia flowers that coordinate with the cream leaves and the pearlescent sheen that we have on our pumpkin. The wood leaves are adorable, and I love the wood pick that coordinates as well. The white velvet pumpkin mimics the pumpkins that we have on either side of our basket. All these festive fall items theme this beautifully into autumn. We are going to calculate the cost for the container only because that was our inspiration piece. So after adding up all the cost, the total was $11.49. That is a savings of $84.50 over our inspiration container. And I love mine so much more, especially with all the additional details that we added to it. Decorative plates are a great alternative to a piece of artwork or even a decorative accessory. Now our inspiration piece for our next dupe is actually not a plate, it's a charger, but it's so pretty I didn't even care. This charger is from Terrain. I think the silver mirrored charger is a beautiful contrast to the gold botanicals surrounding the rim of this charger. It definitely fits in with the fall theme. Now the price of this charger is $46 for one charger, and we do not want to pay that, so we will make our own. Now Hobby Lobby has a huge variety of chargers. I found a clear round charger with a gold rim, and it was only $1.99, which is such a great price. We need to get that silver mirrored look that our inspiration piece has. So what I'm going to use is some looking glass spray paint. I took my charger outside, flipped it over because we are only painting the back side. I began to spray it in the looking glass spray paint. I made sure that the entire back portion of this plate was covered in the paint. This paint dries quickly, so it only took 30 minutes to dry. Look at how cool this looking glass finish is on this plate. And because we only painted the back side, the top side is still smooth. I love how it's reflective and it mimics our inspiration piece so well. Next, I need to get some gold leaf botanicals. So what I did was I just created some leaves in my Cricut design space, and then I had my Cricut maker cut them out on some removable gold vinyl. I weeded away the excess vinyl from around my leaves. I placed transfer tape over the top and pressed everything together firmly, and now I can add my gold leaves to the rim of my plate. I simply placed them on the plate, equidistant from each other, and then pressed the vinyl to the plate with my scraper tool, and then I removed the transfer tape. I made several of these leaves and added them to the rim of the charger. Now, if you do not have a vinyl cutter, that's okay. There are plenty of other ways where you can get a gold design. You could get some stickers, or you could even use a gold paint pen. I purchased gold paint pens at the Dollar Tree, and those would work fabulous as well. But now we are completely done. Let's remember our inspiration charger at a high price of $46 and check out my beautiful charger with the gold leaves around the edge and the looking glass finish. This charger looks so similar to our inspiration charger. The only difference is that mine has a gold rim and I didn't add as many leaves. as our inspiration piece has. But that's okay because we are going to add up the costs that went into creating my charger, and the grand total was $9.99. Now we are not going to use this as a charger. We are going to use this as a decorative plate. So what I'm going to do is take this and put it on top of a frame stand. This is a great addition to this mini display in my dining room. It coordinates beautifully with all the other colors and the fall feeling that we have in there. You could add a plate like this inside of a glass fronted cabinet or anywhere you want to display a piece of fall decor. I love looking through these freebie magazines that come in the mail, and I have this Grandin Road magazine that I was thumbing through, and I happened upon this adorable cake stand. This is a Nutcracker cake stand. It is so cute. I've never seen anything like it before, so I headed to their website to look at it just a little bit further. This cake stand is whimsical and cheerful, and I just had to have one for myself. And of course, we're going to dupe it because the price of this cute little Nutcracker cake stand is $139.30. All right, so we're gonna start off by heading to the Dollar Tree of all places. Now my Dollar Tree has a section that has the $5 items. I found this cute little Nutcracker there. This pretty little Nutcracker is a great size. It has just the right amount of detail. And for the low price of $5, I had to have one of these festive little fellows. To go along with our Nutcracker, we need a sturdier base than it already has because we are going to eventually be putting a plate on top. So I have this decorative square wood base that I purchased at Hobby Lobby. Yes, it has some laser marks in it. I used it to try and engrave something in a different project. It's not a big deal, you guys. It's gonna be just fine. I don't wanna go out and buy another one because we are trying to get the look for less, so I'm using something that I already have. And we're gonna paint it anyway, so you're not even gonna be able to see those little markings. So what I did was I took this wood base outside and I'm going to spray it in some gold Rust-Oleum spray paint. I painted the top and the 4 sides of this square base. Once everything was coated in the spray paint, I let it dry for 1 hour. We need a plate to go on top of our Nutcracker, and I don't want anything too heavy, like a ceramic plate I think would just be too much to put on top of our Nutcracker's head. So what I'm going to use is some plastic plates. I purchased these at Home Goods. Do you remember the dining table scape that we made during the fall? Well, I used these plates. I still have a few of those, so this is going to be the perfect plate for our Nutcracker because it's not too heavy. Now to go along with that, we need something that we can attach the plate to. Now the top of our Nutcracker is a little bit rounded on the top of his head, and so our plate will not sit flat against his head. So what I'm gonna do is get this round metal piece. This is an extra piece from our lamp flip that we did last week. I turned some thrifted lamps into some bases for some Christmas trees, and this little round piece was left over. Now it is not the right color and we want it to be cohesive with our Nutcracker and the base. So I'm going to take it outside and spray it in that same gold Rust-Oleum spray paint. I made sure that the entire metal circle was covered in the spray paint, then let it dry for 1 hour. Now we've got all of our pieces that are ready to be turned into a Nutcracker cake stand. So what I'm gonna do first of all is get out my Athena drill and drill a hole in the Nutcracker's head. Don't worry, we're just doing this as a way to attach that metal piece to the wooden Nutcracker in a very secure way. Once the pilot hole was drilled, I took the lamp piece, placed it over the top of the hole, put a washer over the hole, and then screwed a screw through the circular metal piece and into the wood Nutcracker's hat. Now we know that the plate on our cake stand will not fall off. Next, I took some E6000 and added it to the bottom of the Nutcracker and then placed it in the center of the wood base. Once that was in place, I let it dry for several hours. Now it's time to add our plates to the top. So I took some more of that E6000, added it to the rim of our metal round. Then I took the plate and pressed it firmly to the metal round. Once the plate was in place, I let it dry for a few more hours. We could leave this Nutcracker as is right now. He's absolutely adorable, but we are going to add some extra embellishments because we want our Nutcracker looking as festive as possible for this holiday season. Now I have some leftover strings of pearls. I used these pearls in our semicircle ornaments that I hung in front of the wallpaper in the foyer. I purchased this spool at Hobby Lobby. And if you didn't know by now, pearls is one of my accents that I'm using in my Christmas decor this year. So what I did was I added some hot glue to the base of our Nutcracker. And then I got this strand of pearls and I placed it in the hot glue. Once that was in place, I added another segment of these pearls around his hat. I simply just glued those pearls in place. And then I wanted to hide the seam where the metal round was attached to the top of our Nutcracker's hat. So I added another small segment of pearls. I just hot glued those in place. His drum needs a little extra embellishment as well. So I got some thin gold ribbon. I used this ribbon to fancify our village houses on our display in this room. I'm going to use it again. I just tied it into a bow and then hot glued it to the center of the drum. Then I cut one little pearl off of this strand of pearls, hot glued that, and pressed it into the center of the gold bow. Look at our adorable Nutcracker cake stand, you guys. Have you ever seen anything so cute? I love this so much. Not only is it a whimsical festive piece, but it's classy because of the color scheme and the pearls and bow we added. The plate at the top with the gold scalloped edges around the perimeter adds a touch of glass. And you saw how easy this project was to do. It hardly took me any time, but look at how cute it is. We took a Dollar Tree Nutcracker, added a few embellishments to it, and now we have a festive show-stopping cake stand. And not only do we have a festive show-stopping cake stand, but we have it for a fabulous price. After adding up all of the costs that went into creating this cute little Nutcracker, the grand total was $10.25. And look at how similar my Nutcracker looks to our inspiration piece. The inspiration piece was $139.30. So we saved ourselves $129 by making this ourselves. I am so happy that we decided to do this because it fits in with my color scheme and my design taste, which is one of the best things about getting a look for less, is that you can take inspiration from something else but customize it to your own taste. Now we are going to take this a step further. In our inspiration piece photo, they had a cake at the top, so I think we should add one to the top of ours. Let's head on over to Publix and see what we can find. I decided to go with the yummy plain cheesecake. That way we can embellish it and add some festive touches to it. What we're gonna do is sugar some cranberries. You can sugar any kind of berry you want, but I thought cranberries would be perfect for this season. So I've got some cranberries and I want them to be damp, not wet. If they're wet, this sugar will dissolve on the cranberries, but if they're damp, it will stick to it. So what I did was I washed them off and I put them on top of a paper towel so that it would soak up all that water. I also have some fresh mint leaves because the red and the green is gonna look so pretty. And then I have a ramekin filled with sugar, just everyday granulated sugar. So what I'm gonna do is just take my cranberries, my damp cranberries, just pop them into the ramekin filled with sugar, and then I'm just gonna give them a good shake. And you can see how that sugar just starts to cling to those cranberries. We'll roll them around. We want them to be well coated in the sugar. Now that they are, look at how pretty these are. These look like they've been outside in the snow. They are so festive. Okay, so I've already transferred my cheesecake to my Nutcracker cake stand. And what I'm gonna do is just take a couple of these berries and just place them on top. We're gonna put a few on top. We're gonna put a few around the base. I added these cute little cranberries to similar places as our inspiration cake, a few on the top and a couple around the perimeter on the bottom. Next, I'm gonna take my fresh mint leaves and place those right in between some of the cranberries. Our inspiration piece had rosemary on it, so you could use that too. I personally like the sweet more than the savory when it comes to my desserts, but the rosemary would be fabulous too. So I've just got a couple of these beautiful green mint leaves. I'm just gonna intersperse in between our cranberries. I love the color combination of the red and the green. Okay, here we go. We've got our cheesecake on top of our Nutcracker cake stand. This is such a holiday time saver. If you don't have time to bake a cake or some kind of dessert from scratch, buy one at the store and embellish it. This took me a couple of minutes, but it looks classy, it looks custom, and it looks like I spent a lot of time doing this, even though we did not. This adorable Nutcracker cake stand and cheesecake would be an adorable addition to any Christmas buffet, dessert table, or a small family get-together. I love the way this looks. It's just too cute. We're gonna leave our Nutcracker out because he's too cute to hide. So he's gonna sit here and be my friend for the rest of the video. All right, well, I just kept looking through this Grandin Road magazine, and on the very first page, I found my next dupe. There are these adorable pillows with these exaggerated bows. The color is so festive and bright, and it's one of those pieces that I haven't seen before, which makes me want to make it for myself because I love unique and one-of-a-kind pieces. And another reason why I want to make it is because of the price. It is on sale right now, but it is still $55.65. And I know that we can replicate it for so much less. Now, you guys know that I love those Hobby Lobby pillow coverings. I use them all the time. So I got another one of these. It's an 18 by 18 inch pillow covering, and it's only $3.99, which is such a bargain. Now we are going to take a few creative liberties because the red and green is not going to fit in with my specific color scheme. So we are going to go with the white pillow covering, and the ribbon that I'm going to use is this Merry Christmas ribbon. I have it all over my house. I purchased it at Ross and it was only $6.99 for 10 yards. That is a deal. And this ribbon is wired and it's also canvas, so it's going to adhere really well to the pillow covering. I'm also going to be using some heat and bond. I have used this in so many of my projects in the past. I've used it on pillow coverings. I've used it on a tablecloth. I have a leftover heat and bond, and we don't need that much, so I'm going to cut out a strip the same width as our ribbon. I purchased this heat and bond at Hobby Lobby, and it is only $3.49 for a full yard. There are two sides to the heat and bond. There's a bumpy textured side, and then there's the smooth side. What we want to do is put the bumpy side against the wrong side of our ribbon. I heated my iron up to a medium-high heat. I put the ribbon on top of my easy press mat. You could also use an ironing board. Then I placed the iron over the top. You're going to want to keep the iron in place for about 8 seconds. This is long enough that it will heat it up sufficiently so that it fuses together. I ironed along the entire length of my ribbon. Now you can see that that ribbon is really stiff, And now we can cut it to the size that we want. I want one piece of ribbon that goes the full length of the pillow. So I cut that to size. Then I removed the protective covering over the heat and bond. I placed it over the pillow covering. I took my iron, put it over the top of the ribbon, and this time you leave it in place for about 2 to 3 seconds. I simply moved the iron down the length of the ribbon. Next, I took my second segment of ribbon. I cut that in two. I took the first segment, removed the protective coating off the heat and bond, and placed the ribbon on top of the pillow covering. I put the iron over the top of the ribbon. Now that that's fused to the pillow, I did the exact same thing with my third segment. I removed the protective covering over the heat and bond, placed the ribbon on the pillow covering, heated it up with my iron so that the ribbon was fused well to the pillow covering. Now you can see how well that this ribbon is fused to the pillow. In my opinion, it's better than sewing because you don't have any of the stitch marks that you can see. The ribbon looks pristine. Now we're going to make our exaggerated bow that goes in the center. So I cut 2 long strips of this ribbon and 1 shorter strip. To create the bow, I took one end and folded it to the center, and then I took the opposite end and folded that to the center. I overlapped the ribbon just a little bit so that I could take my needle and thread and sew the ribbon together. Then I bunched it up. I took my needle and pressed it through the center and continued to do that so that the gather would stay in place. Once I had my first segment sewn together, I moved on and I did the exact same thing with the second segment of ribbon. I took both ends, folded them to the center, sewed them together, bunched the ribbon in the center, and sewed it in place. The last loop I need is just a singular loop, so I just wrapped that into a circle and sewed the ends together. I took my first segment of ribbon, sewed it to the pillow, took my second segment of looped ribbon, put it on the opposite side of the first looped ribbon, sewed that together, and then finally grabbed my singular loop and sewed that right to the center of our bow. Now we have our exaggerated bow smack dab in the center, and it couldn't be cuter. I filled my pillow covering with a down pillow insert, and this is the final pillow. I love that over-exaggerated bow. It is so festive, and it's just the cutest thing, you guys. Every time I look at it, I have to smile. How can you not smile when you see that? And one of the best parts about making a pillow like this is that it can be completely customized to your own design style and taste. You could definitely go with those bright, festive pops of color. You could use a pattern ribbon. You could get a pattern or textured pillow covering. There's so many directions you could go when making a festive pillow like this. I'm going to place my pillow on the bench right here in the foyer because I want it to be the first thing that people see when they come through my house. I'm going to swap it out for this pillow that was there. I feel like this pillow is what this pillow wants to be when it grows up, right? So we're gonna put this one in a different room, and we're gonna put this pillow right here on the bench. The Grandin Road website had cute pillows like this, but I have to give an honorable mention to this ornament pillow. How cute is that? This round pillow, oh, adorable. They also had like a lumbar pillow with a little candy cane in the center. And if you liked the pillows with the bows, they also have stockings with these exaggerated bows on them. Super cute. They are expensive. So let's go over the cost of how much I spent to create my duped pillow. After adding up all the expenses, the grand total came out to, what a deal. And to look at how similar my pillow covering looks to our inspiration pillow covering. Now, I did not add the cost of my pillow insert when I was calculating all the expenses, so you can take that into consideration as well. But still, our inspiration piece was $55.65. I think I'll take that savings every day of the week. I love our pillow. It looks joyful and merry. Do you know what we haven't done in a while is a flower arrangement. And I think that's because we've been arranging flowers, botanicals, on my trees and on my garlands and on the lampposts. We've done giant flower arrangements, but we haven't done any singular floral arrangements, so it's about time. Our inspiration piece is from the Horchow website this time. I found this gorgeous Christmas floral arrangement. I love the size. The red flowers are such a nice pop of color. It looks cheerful but expensive, and the reason why it looks expensive is because it is expensive. The cost of this flower arrangement is $696.50, and that's 30% off. It's on sale right now, so that's the sale price of that flower arrangement. So while it is lovely, we will not be spending that amount of money. We will make our own. So the first thing that I need is a gold container. I could not find one that was similar, but I did find one that was cream. This one is from Ross. I love the size and the shape. It's almost identical to our inspiration piece. Luckily for me, this container was on clearance. It was only $8.99. And with a quick color change, it's going to be perfect. So I took this bowl outside and I'm going to spray it in some Krylon gold spray paint. I flipped it upside down because I want to paint the outside only of this container. Once the knobs and the perimeter of this container was completely coated in the gold spray paint, I let it dry for 1 hour. While that is drying, I'm going to lay out all of my festive flowers and greenery, berries, pine cones, and leaves. I picked up several of these flowers at Michael's. I also had a few on hand that I picked out of my floral stash. Our container is now dry, and look at how fabulous it is. It is the perfect shade of gold, and it looks so similar to our inspiration piece. I'm going to create a tape grid, which is much less expensive than using floral foam, and it does the job beautifully. So I ran 2 lines of Scotch tape over the top of the container vertically and 2 lines horizontally. Now I could just grab all of my festive flowers and start adding it to the tape grid. I took my hydrangeas and my bouquets of white and red flowers and simply added them to the container. Next, I moved on and added my magnolia leaves and pine branches to the arrangement. Then I took my gold berries, put those in similar places as our inspiration piece, and finished off our arrangement with several pine cones along the bottom. Isn't this floral arrangement stunning? I absolutely love it. I love it because it's unique. I'm not going with the red flowers this Christmas season, but because they're so subtle, they could fit into any color scheme. You could place a floral arrangement like this in the center of a dining table, on a buffet. You could place this on top of your fireplace. It's an easy and affordable way to bring in a pop of color and add a bit of holiday flair to your living space. Our floral arrangement isn't anywhere near as expensive as our $696.50 inspiration floral arrangement, and I think they look so similar. But they are miles apart when it comes to price. After adding up all the costs that went into my floral arrangement, the grand total was $31.99. What a savings, and I love my flower arrangement just as much. And honestly, you could cut down the costs even further by using flowers that you already have at home. This flower arrangement is a high-end piece that adds a touch of luxury to your Christmas decorations, and it was also so easy to create. Each of these are stunning, but they came in at a budget-friendly price, which proves that each of us can live beautifully and we can do it throughout the year if we just think outside the box, use a little creativity and some elbow grease. I appreciate you stopping by. We will see you later.